of time, so I know everyone's time is valuable, we can go ahead and get started. Thank you, Laura. For those of you who don't know me, I've met almost everyone in this room. My name is Lauren Kosra. I'm a reference librarian here, and I'm currently service chair of the library. I was hoping we could go around and just do some brief introductions. What?
Magda Piper. I'm adjunct at ENT.
Awesome. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello, I'm Margarita Formanska. I teach horticulture, just finished class.
Oh.
And entomology right now at horticulture.
Oh, thank you so much for running over.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a hike, so thanks for coming over. Yeah, absolutely. Well, welcome. Thanks for being here. Hi.
Hi, I am Risa Sanders-Weir. I am an adjunct in mass communications.
Good to see you.
I'm Katura Haferkamp. I'm a full-time faculty member in the English department.
I'm John Cody. I'm the chair of the Certified Medical Assistant Program.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for being here. So today, what I'm going to share with you is a little bit about a new tool that the library has access to. And really, the goal of this presentation is just to kind of introduce the tool and to show a little bit about how it could hopefully be useful to you in your classrooms. So I have this here that I can share. For today, really the goal is to just talk a little bit about what is the annual copyright license that is offered by the Copyright Clearance Center, and then how can I or we use it to improve my course materials or to offer additional course materials in your classrooms. So that's the goal today. I'm also happy to answer any library questions as well while we're in the room. So if anything like that comes up during our time today, please feel free to ask those questions. I'm happy to expand any conversation beyond just what's on my PowerPoint slides. So with that being said, title of the presentation is the Copyright Clearance Center, and just want a brief introduction of what is the Copyright Clearance Center, and then we can talk a little bit about the annual license that we currently subscribe to through the CCC. So the Copyright Clearance Center is a company that has expertise in copyright and information management, and they offer kind of what this company offers to not just higher education institutions, but for businesses, corporations, a collective licensing model. So what that means is that this company provides this annual copyright license, again, to a large variety of stakeholders, but for us specifically, higher education institutions, and they do that to a variety of colleges and universities across the United States. So that's the Copyright Clearance Center. It is the company, they have expertise in copyright, and they, again, specialize in this kind of collective licensing model. Now, the annual copyright license is what we as an institution subscribe to. So as an institution, we have an annual copyright license through the CCC, and this is a copyright license that's offered to academic institutions. And this license, like this kind of sentence here, is really what this offers. So it provides stakeholders across the institution, so faculty, librarians, staff, with coverage for the reuse of text-based copyrighted content, both in print and online, for educational purposes, meaning for for our classrooms. So a few things to highlight kind of in this statement. This came straight from their website, so just a few things to emphasize is that really as faculty, this is geared towards faculty use because it is really geared towards classroom use. And when we say the reuse of text-based content, here is what we mean. It truly is text-based content in the sense that it is geared towards books, ebooks, journals, print-based materials. What I mean by, or I should say text-based materials, not necessarily print-based, right? So text-based in the sense that it's a book, journal article, but it does not have to be physically in print. It can also be digital copies, right? So just to be aware of that. So really what we're talking about is text-based materials for faculty to use in your courses in both a print or an online format. So I'll share more examples of that in just a second, but we're going to talk today and kind of talk through and work through what this is and what it is not, right? So what it is this blanket coverage for text-based works, and it gives you coverage to use these texts in your classroom without a risk of copyright infringement. So these are works that are copyrighted, and you'll be able to use them in your classroom, again, both online and in person, both digitally and in print. It is not an actual, like a library database, right? So you're not actually getting content from the tool that I'm going to show you today. So our library databases are where we subscribe to get access to the actual full text articles, so things like newspaper, magazine, journal, ebooks. That's where you find the actual work or the full text of that. What the license does is it gives you the freedom to use that in your course without the risk of copyright infringement. So just wanted to make that distinction. So it doesn't provide the content, but it does provide coverage for your use of that content in your classroom. Okay? I'm going to pause there for just a moment. Are there any questions on those distinctions?
So it really covers our liability should we accidentally violate a copyright.
Correct. Correct. And it expands some offering and some use of copyright material. So the best way I can describe this without getting correct.
Is
Without
there a limitation to percentage? So for example, per book, I could take some percentage of the text?
it is great question. It is only limited by what falls under the license. So CCC elicits contents from thousands of publishers. Not everything, right, that is published falls under the CCC license, and that is the tool that I'm going to show you today, is how to search for works that may fall under the license. They make it pretty easy to determine. It's like a check mark, yes, falls under, because we subscribe, you're good to go. Big X, nope, can't use it, doesn't fall under the license. If it's a green check with maybe there might be particular to that article or that book, there might be some limitations, but typically the limitation that I've seen so far is you can use it in print. They don't want it in like a digital course pack, or vice versa. You can do it digitally. They don't want you to sell it in a course pack in the bookstore. It's not typically tied to percentages. So to answer your question, I would say in my experience searching and using this tool, it's either all or nothing in terms of the actual work, but what might be limited is the type of usage that's allowed, but those are only in some cases. It seems to be for the very particular publishers that they want some kind of limitation on that work for some reason. In my conversations with the vendor, they try to get it to be all or nothing. It's either you use it under this blanket or nope, you're not interested. They're trying to limit as much as possible the discrepancies. But great question.
It's normally,
Yes.
higher education institutions have been given, great latitude in what they use, as long as they're citing it properly and they're not using too much at one time. So does this go beyond that then?
Yeah, let's.
Maybe I'm getting
my
ahead of
next
myself.
slide.
Lauren, just go in your regular.
Let me
what
do,
you're
no,
normally
this
gonna
is
do.
great. This is great. This is leading into my next slide. So this is perfect. So the annual copyright license, I think it's my first time doing a presentation on it, so I'm still like working out my metaphor, right? So I think that fair use is maybe, let's call it like just the first ring, right? So in that circle, this expands that ring out a little bit more. So what can fall under fair use? Again, fair use is an argument, right? This is a law, so it's a legal kind of argument. It's within an educational institution. What the license does is it expands that out a step, I would say, by giving explicit terms and explicit agreements, where fair use is an argument that can be used for the usage of something. What the annual copyright license does is spells out in explicit terms, like, yes, you are absolutely able to use this, and in these specific ways. So it's another step or ring out, I would say, from the argument of fair use. For example, these things are explicitly, spelled out in the contract, and you can absolutely use it if it falls under our license. You can use this. You can take a work, right, whether it's an article, a chapter, part of an ebook, you can put that into either like an e-reserves or our Blackboard postings, right? Those can be uploaded, and you know 100% check, you are good to go, you're not violating anything. You can include it in a course pack or in a classroom handout. For example, you can include it in like a package of readings, right? You can have that sold through the bookstore. You can have that in a classroom handout. You can send it out, right, campus-wide. Doesn't have to be limited to just the people in your classroom, which can also be an argument under fair use if it's just for this classroom for this period of time. This lets you distribute widely on campus. And then again, there's this kind of other piece with research and scholarly collaboration. So these are uses that when if a work falls under our license and you see that green check mark, you know without a shadow of a doubt, like the publishers have agreed to this in a contract and you are 100% okay under copyright using it for these reasons. Does that answer your question, John?
So as long as we see a check mark, we don't have to do anything special?
Correct. It's very easy on the faculty members end, because if you search for it and you see a green check mark, because we pay for the license, you are good to go.
Just embed it in my course. I can just put it in.
Yep. And again, no doubt in your mind, with fair use, there's like these 4 factors, and you kind of have to weigh them, and it depends, and you come into the how much of an argument, right? And well, the original work was a 300-page book, and I'm using one. Like there's all, and the answer is consistently it depends, because it does, right? It always just depends on the work and how you're using it. Where here, again, the license puts this in contractual language, and you know once there's the green check mark, you're good to go.
Give me an example of what one would have to do if we didn't have this. Agreement.
Well, John, it's a really good question.
Well, I mean, you know, I know that we don't know everything.
Yes, I do know. I don't have institutional documentation to back me up.
Okay.
So professionally, I know what is required, but in almost everything that you see documented, it will say check your campus copyright policy, and we do not have one. So I don't,
we don't have to have one, because we got this program.
Best practice is you should have one,
Well, I understand.
so everyone's on the same page.
Our policy is,
Yeah.
we got this program worked out. For example.
Possibly.
Like my church is part of a large organization. I
Yeah.
can say, our policy is the overwide
Yeah.
general district
Yeah.
policy.
Yeah, what we say is our policy is federal law, which may or may not be helpful when it's a faculty
Sure,
member trying to
sure.
make a decision over a particular
Yeah.
thing. So in best practice, it would be you take the 4 kind of factors of fair use, you weigh them, and in conjunction with some institutional guidance, you make a decision of whether or not that is a fair use, respecting the copyright holder and balancing your needs for your course, right? That's kind of best practice. I can give you my opinion, but again, with an institutional policy, that's me as Lauren, the librarian, my opinion of how, and I have been asked to offer copyright guidance from faculty, and I'm happy to do that on an individual kind of case-by-case basis from my professional knowledge. Yeah.
Does the learning management system posting cover a document with links that are posted within the element? So you understand what I mean?
Yes.
It's not the same as a posting.
No.
anymore?
The best part of linking
Yeah.
is when you link, you're not creating a copy. If you don't create a copy, there's no copyright. So that's a great best practice for a Blackboard shell is to link out to material, because a link is just a link. In order for copyright to be applied, there has to be a copy. Does that make sense? So actually, I highly encourage linking because that's, oh no, go ahead.
So if you link to something on Pirate Bay, where it is up there illegally,
Yes.
that,
Professionally, that would break my ethical code. Like as a professional, I would not do that because that's unethical use of information.
for sure, but I
Yeah.
guess what I'm trying to get to
Yeah.
is you're saying links are better.
You wouldn't be personally liable for breaking copyright because you didn't make a copy of that work. Professionally, I think that's a poor information practice.
I mean, yes, ethically,
Yeah.
I 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to
Yeah.
understand.
Like if you link to a feature film on YouTube, right, technically it's openly available. You can link to it. You're not personally liable, but then YouTube's going to take it down because, right, that's infringing on copyright. But yeah, you're not personally providing the bootleg copy. So I guess that's more of like a ethical, moral dilemma than a true copyright dilemma.
Yeah, but this
Yeah.
doesn't cover any.
This
movies
covers,
or videos.
right, this covers, like, again, it gets down to nitty gritty, like this article, is this article that I want to pass out to my students or put in the course pack or post to Blackboard, is this covered under this license? You can search by ISBN numbers, right, it gets really specific to each particular work and publisher and author and who holds the copyright. They opt into this, and so you will be able to search very specifically. But again, for you, I think it's important to note that these are text-based.
Yeah, I don't have any deep questions.
Yeah.
Because everything's copacetic and ethical, the way
Yeah.
you get things linked.
Yeah.
So I'm feel good about that.
Yes. So for you, yeah, for your classes, that's why streaming media is great. Is because the media is treated differently than some of the
But I do
text
link
based.
to a lot of articles
Yeah.
and things like that. So
Great.
I think it still is very
Yeah.
pertinent.
Yeah, totally.
Did I miss, or am I jumping the gun about how we search?
You guys are just leading me right into my next slide. Great, excellent. So this is a two-step process. The first, because the annual copyright license does not actually provide you with the content, step one is to acquire a legally obtained copy, right? So you have to have a copy of the work, right? So if you have a PDF of the article, did you get that in a legal way, right? So that could be downloading from one of the library's databases, right? The PDF to a journal article. That could be a copy of an ebook, again, through the library, purchasing it, whatever that might be. Interlibrary loan, right? There's provisions that's a legally obtained copy. So if we don't own the book, but another library does, you can scan the PDF, right? So legally obtained is very broad, but goes back to your point, right? Are you getting it from a pirated site that you know, right, is not an ethical way of acquiring that information, or is it through legally obtained? Again, libraries, bookstores, Amazon, like whatever that might be. As long as you have a copy that has been legally obtained, step one is check, right? We don't have to have it in a library database. You don't have to own it, right? You don't have to buy the first copy, but as long as it's legally obtained. So that one should be a pretty easy check mark. If you're going to pass it out to your class or you want to put it in Blackboard, do you have the full text? The next is to check for permission. So there's two ways that you can do that. In just a moment, I can show you on the library's website where you can fill out a form and ask a librarian to do it. So number one, you can ask a librarian to check for you, right? So if you don't want to deal with searching the tool or you want to have one of us screen that, we can absolutely do that. I can show you on the library's website where to do that. So here at library.triton.edu is our homepage. If you scroll down on the homepage here, underneath quick links, there's a link for faculty. If you click on that link, then there's a link, it's just a Google form to request copyright information. If you click on that, it's going to ask you for your name, what you're looking for, and some contact information, and then we can have a librarian search that for you. So that is the one way you can do it. And then the next way is, let me go ahead, head back, is through this link. So the Copyright Clearance Center, CCC, has a Write Find tool, and this is the URL, so academic.copyright.com. So if you head to that URL, I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Then it's going to ask you if you're registered or if you're a new user, and you can do that with your triton.edu email address. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in and show you how this tool works. So it's a pretty easy interface. You can see already it's prompting you. You can enter the publication title, ISBN. If you have multiple ISBNs, you can enter them with just comma in between and search multiple works. So if you go ahead and search, I'm going to search for So the short stories. The Good Man is hard to find. I'm going to go ahead and click search, and you can see there's multiple search results, and there are several different editions, publications, right, of Flannery O'Connor's work. You can see we have several filters to help you narrow, again, depending on what you search for. You could have, several thousand search results, so you can narrow it down by the publication type, the country of origin. And if you scroll through, you can see that this is, a book. It has your ISBN number here, the original press. And when I was talking about those check marks, right, that's what you see here. So you can click on these to find out more information, but really when you're starting to see the green check marks, that's when you know if you have this book, you can download a PDF, you can scan a copy of a PDF if this is something that you want your students to read, then you would be able to take this short story, upload it to your Blackboard shell, include it in a course pack, write all of those things, and you know that you are good to go. Now, if you scroll down, you can start seeing the big, nope, can't use it, right? And so these could be other editions from other publishers. Maybe it's a different record you can start to see, but I just wanted to show an example where some of them are good to go, but then if you see the red mark, those are the ones that are not included under the license. So again, I would say from the user end, pretty easy to determine what falls within the license and what does not fall within the license. So you can absolutely kind of self-service, right, create an account and be able to search. But if this is a process that seems somewhat intimidating, or once you dive into it, seems like it might be helpful to have another pair of eyes, you can absolutely reach out to us as librarians, and we're happy to help facilitate this process. If it's something that does not fall under the use of the annual academic license, we can absolutely engage in a conversation around fair use, right? What the actual work is that you would like to include, how you would like to use it in your classroom, and like we were talking about with John earlier, happy to kind of advise or give some guidance on whether or not that's an appropriate use for that in your classroom. Do you have any questions?
How much did it cost us to do this?
This round was grant funding,
Okay.
several thousand. Yeah, this first round was funded
Is
by a
this one of
grant.
those things we'll have to eventually cover the cost?
Yes. Yeah.
So it covers.
Yeah.
So my cover your butt instinct
Yeah.
would be to say I wanted to use this one that's at the very top,
Yeah.
would be to screenshot that. And, because what's the chances that it would, somebody pop up, like my class gets set in stone every couple of years and then I can't really change it.
Yeah.
So I would have checked like 5 years ago to see if that was okay.
Yeah.
Under this license.
Yeah.
And somebody here on campus popped up with a question 5 years from now, and I'd say, well, I went to the website.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to.
I will never dissuade you from collecting evidence, right, and being able to cite your sources. Coming from, right, the chair of the library, I'm never going to dissuade you from that. But that was a question that when we had a webinar and was in conversation with the vendor that I asked, and they are in multi-year contracts. So publishers enter into multi-year contracts. And again, they try to kind of, I guess the best word I can think of right now is like chunk stuff, right? So like if it's a publisher, they try to take as much, right, from that publisher as possible to cover as much, so where it's not as piecemeal and things are coming in and out. So my impression in conversations with the vendor was that they try to have as much coverage as possible and through multi-year contracts. So it doesn't seem like their model is kind of one in, pull things out. Of course, they can, pull things out, but it seemed like they're trying to maintain continuity within the license as much as possible.
But would best practice be to check this every semester, every year?
If it's something that like if you have maybe 10 articles and it's something that you're concerned about, I would say probably every academic year sounds about right. Yeah, yeah. If there's multiple things that you know fall under copyright, you want to make sure that you're using that information ethically each year, I would say probably every fall would be a good timeline. Any other questions?
So you
On
can
the subject?
look it up using the title, but you can use ISBN
Yes,
number, yes?
yes, yeah. I've found the search functions to be really easy. Yeah, it's like title, author, it's kind of the normal, like if you look it up in a library catalog, I found that functionality to be pretty seamless,
But since you
and
have a book,
ISBN.
you can type the ISBN and it
Yeah.
will be.
Yeah, if you have that work in front of you, again, if you know the journal article you want to share, if you know the book that you want to share, I would say it's pretty easy to find in here. It's going to be whether it falls under or not, right? Is the green or the red check mark is going to be the tipping point, but I would say for the most part, I found the search interface to be pretty user friendly. Yeah. Any other questions I can answer here?
What is digital sharing if I want to photocopy? For example, if I have a book that I own,
Mm-hmm.
if I wanted to photocopy it and then put it online,
Uh-huh.
is that possible?
Yeah.
Under that
So
same-
this is saying, right, if you have a copy, you bought it or you own it, legally obtained, step one. Step two, they have digital sharing and photocopy sharing are kind of the two that you'll see. They're rarely broken up. I have seen some where like digital sharing is allowed in one, but for the most part, it's either both green or both red. And here, right, it tells you. You can use it in an e-course pack, an electronic reserve, post in Blackboard, post on any internal, right, documentation. You can email within your institutions. That includes emailing to all your students. I know that can sometimes be a hang-up where it's like, oh, it's got to be behind Blackboard, so it's password protected. Here, you could email it out to your students if they have a homework assignment, right, put it in a presentation, distribute in a PowerPoint presentation. So lots of usage here. So that is the digital, and I'll just do the same thing for the photocopy. Again, if it's going to be in like a course pack, if you want it all printed out, bound in the bookstore for students, you can do that. Classroom handout, print copies, right, if you're going to share with your department, all of that. So that's the physical, again, you're physically making a copy. Those are all allowable as well. So I do like that because it's pretty detailed if you want more information. And then there are this kind of more ways to share. I think this is actually just both. But if there was anything additional, you could click on there. Like I said, there are some instances where one's green, one's red, but for the most part, they follow suit. Yeah?
I'm assuming, and I don't want to assume, so I'm just going to ask.
Sure.
That our textbooks would not be on here.
It depends, but if you are someone who uses like a 2020, 2021, 2022 recent edition of like a brand new published content, likely not. If you have a book that's maybe, I would say within the 5-10 year range, maybe it leans more towards like a book of readings, more creative content rather than like a textbook content, there is the potential that something like that would be in here.
But not,
Yeah.
I use older editions, my students can buy used books. So
Yeah.
they would still have a current version, so.
Yeah, I think it's always worth a check, but this I think would lean more towards, because basically then
Primary
publishers are
sources.
giving up those proceeds to whatever they're getting paid by the licensure, and I'm sure what they're making off of students is way more.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
That
Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to sign those over to something like that.
For sure, yeah, I often have students in the first 2 weeks of class who are like, my financial aid doesn't come through, I can't
Yep.
get my textbooks, can
Yep.
you send me the,
First
the
chapter,
first 2 weeks
all of that.
readings? And it's like, no, I can't really. Huh?
Yeah, you can.
Oh,
They can
there's
check
copies of the textbook in
Yeah.
the library on reserve.
course reserves and iShare.
But it might not be a textbook.
Oh, no, this is a textbook, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a textbook issue. For
Yeah.
me,
So,
That's where we've tried to fill in the gaps with other things like course reserve or things like that. Yeah.
is it correct statement that if the book is discontinued in print, you can share that?
Not automatically.
Okay.
Print
So many-
discontinued in print does not necessarily mean public domain and does not mean that someone somewhere doesn't still have a copyright over that item.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's discontinued, you can copy and paste and give it to school.
No, just because it's on
Experiment.
frame does not mean, yep.
Can you type in CMA review?
CMA review,
Yeah, let's see what.
is that the title, is that a title?
Yeah, it's part of the title. See what it does.
So it looks like most of these are no, with pretty recent,
Oh, there's, well,
yeah, I would say the exam review is, so this is potentially, it's a little bit older, it's 2012.
Okay.
It might be, it looks like some of the older stuff is allowed, where the more recent stuff isn't, which,
So I like there is no check mark.
Go back, go back.
oh, where, down,
Go
down?
back down, yeah, just a little bit. Right there. That one's not on.
Mhm. So I think it would be worth searching and seeing what's in here. Yeah,
what
yes.
what if, perhaps there's a short story or some poems?
Uh-huh.
What if the teacher read them aloud and made an audio? Now that's text-based, but.
And it's a performance, which is protected under fair use.
Okay.
So yeah, that's totally fine. Just in general, performance is fair use.
Yeah, I can distribute it then on our LMS. I can read it aloud in the session, but
Yeah.
can I post a recording of myself?
That's a really good question. My inclination is yes.
Really?
Yeah, I'm being recorded right now, so maybe don't hold me to it. But yeah, my inclination is fine.
I know, for example, LibreVox, if you're reading for LibreVox, for example, they're audio files, but they're 4 pieces in the public domain.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wonder if these has to be already distributed here or in the public domain, or to be translated into an audio reading. Or can I just do that?
My gut instinct is performance is under fair use, and so my gut instinct is yes, I can definitely look more into it, but I would say that my gut is telling me that's fine.
I think sometimes audio for accessibility could be really helpful.
Oh,
So that's why I
100%.
was-
And it's, to me personally, just, I don't know, how it's meant to be heard, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Sometimes, yeah.
yeah, so absolutely, 100% be beautiful. All right, any other questions here that I can answer? So that is Right Find by the Copyright Clearance Center. Again, it can be self-service, where you can search yourself, but you're always happy to fill out that, feel free to fill out that form. We'll definitely get back to you, or just send me an email. I'm happy
Could you please
to
go
do
to
that
the
as well.
screen site and take picture of the
Yes.
actual-
So this is a completely self-serve process. The school is not really following up on these sorts of things.
What do you mean?
Well, let's say I post 5 articles in my, Blackboard.
Yeah,
I never go check them, I don't care. I'm joking, of course.
yeah.
There's no practical way that Triton can follow up on that. Nobody's policing our course content.
I would say there's definitely not a policing effort, but again, just as professionals, right, modeling best practices for our students.
I'm not looking
Yeah.
for a way to get away with it.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
trying
no,
to
no, for
understand
sure.
the
No, but I
stuff.
think that is, right, just as faculty are empowered with course content and, with the course outcomes and how you teach, I think that's all falls under, right, the, profession, right, and being able to legally and ethically share information with our students. But yeah, there's not like a person whose job it is to like hound you for copyright.
you.
Yeah, personally,
Well,
I would like more institutional support around guidance.
Yeah.
But no, there's no.
When I
policing
developed
effort.
my course,
Mhm.
the school and I came to the agreement that they didn't believe certain things were fair use, and I did, and we had a discussion about it,
Yeah.
and I said, okay.
Yeah, and like I said, that's where I would advocate for some more written guidance, right? So it's not just a personal decision between two people, but there's more guidance for everyone across the institution, would be my preference. But in the absence of that, we have these, professional conversations around those and come to a good consensus.
Huzzah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So my hope is that it's a seamless, easy process. If you have something that is not in here, like I said, please, we can open that conversation. I can always reach out to the vendor and see if this is a copyright that they would be willing to pursue. They have opened that door, so I'm absolutely happy to go that avenue, but also have the conversation around, what are you using in your classroom? What's the intent, to weigh those 4 factors of fair use, and again, to have those conversations where it shouldn't be scary to incorporate information into your course, but also, again, to do it in an ethical and a legal way. So, well, with that, thank you all so much for being here. It's so fun to see people in person again. So I appreciate it. And with any questions, anything that comes up, using the tool or anything else about library resources and services, please feel free to send me an email. I'm always happy to support faculty, so please let me know. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.